So Grant, let's go through one. Let's use an example and a bit of a process, and then I'll do one. Tell me about when you've taken a financial hit, and then tell me about the process you've taken or how you kind of got back up from that and recovered.
All right. So out of all of them, I've actually chosen to pick like the worst one that I got hit with. So
we might as well make this a podcast and therapy, right? Two things at once.
I was going to say. All right. I'm going to preface it. This is the time that I had to ask the brand new girlfriend of like a couple of months to go and pay the rent. Like, that's the setup for each other. So essentially, at the time, I was building a software business. Ended up throwing like 6 figures at this thing, and then all I did every Monday to Sunday, 80, 100-hour weeks, was punch into this business to the point of neglect everywhere else, right? Like, and somehow I still had a new girlfriend at that time. So anyway, depleting my savings, wasn't earning money anywhere else basically, and all I had done was just funnel this money, and then I started changing like to pay for little things on like credit cards and stuff like that. And I was kind of seeing the writing on the wall where I'm like, this is not a good thing. Like, bank account's depleting, I'll move to a credit card. Like, you know, those little symptoms that you're kind of at the time, you're like, okay, this is not going to be good unless something changes. Until it got to the stage of me actually going to Hazel one day. And like I still remember I was sitting at this table that we ate food at, and it would like faced a wall. And so she was like sitting on like the couch or like bed or something like that off to the side. And I was like just facing this wall. I'm like, look, I have to talk to you about something like real challenging. And I just could not look at her in the eyes. And I just said like, hey, I don't think I can pay the rent for this month. Do you reckon that you can actually like pay the rent for us? To which she's like then caught a glimpse of my eye, which she still to this day says it was like the only time she's actually ever seen me cry was this point, because I was just that fucking depleted. I was just dirt. It was like tough.
Okay, well, let's unpack this first. So the financial hit appears that you had undying belief in your company and that it would pay off at some point.
And then, yes, but then just pushing through.
But then your cash was just being depleted. So you'd like wiped out your emergency fund, started putting money on credit cards, and then finally when couldn't pay the rent, you've had to turn to Hazel and say, was it Hazel? Or is this another girlfriend?
No, it was Hazel.
All right, good to know. I mean, it would have been, I would feel differently about this story if it was another girlfriend. I would be like, well played, man.
Well, I got a free rent out of it.
Maybe that's the move.
Trust me, it's not the fucking move.
Yeah, so you've had to go to Hazel, and then when you've kind of had this awareness piece kick in, or when you realized you've had a problem, was it embarrassment? Was it like, oh, I'm not looking after you? Was it, what changed then?
Yeah, so it was interesting. I did everything under the sun just to like stretch this out as far as I could, just to not have this conversation. And it was funny because upon reflection, it was actually easier to talk to her about it than it was to talk to like people that I was in business with. Like that was actually the path of least resistance.
Do you know what I love though? That you had so much belief in the software business. Right, because you would have had writing on the wall everywhere saying, hey, my financial situation is not improving here. Like totally. I'm going more broke every month, I would suspect. You were seeing things?
Yes.
Or ignoring things, one or the other. So there were enough signs around, like you start using a credit card, for example, here when you previously didn't have to, but belief was high. So I do love that about the story. But what's interesting here is like this is a slow motion train wreck, right? There were signs along the way. This wasn't like, oh, I got to work and like, you know, an earthquake happened in that day, which would be like sudden impact. This would be something where you've bled down, and then the actual like finance part of this is actually the partner. It's having to front up to Hazel where you've like, boom, wow, I have taken a financial hit here.
Totally. Yeah, it was, it was probably about a year and a half, 2 years.
Ooh, slow bleed.
Yeah, and then the real bleed started happening like the final 12 months. And I knew, I'm like, oh, okay, cool. And so I was like trying to indicate, hey, let's go and raise money and stuff. And I'm like, no, it's fine. Like, we'll just keep doing the thing. And then we'll put it, because we hadn't put it in front of a customer yet. And so I'm like, we should probably put it in front of someone that might pay. Nah, that's fine. We'll wait. and the problem was I was just like demolishing like my personal life at the time. And so then I was just like, oh my gosh. But yeah, so it was this full slow bleed. And then I'd like transition to like pay for things on the credit card. Just to try and keep liquid cash to pay rent and things that I had to pay cash for, those things. And and until it got to the point of just like, hey, can you just go and pay this rent? And just whilst I try and figure this out.
I find it so interesting for a lot of business owners when they can hide the mess in business, they're okay.
Totally.
But when they have to front up at home and go, hey, I know I'm supposed to be providing for you, but I can't, as an example. And when they have to sit in that like shame and guilt, and I say that from my perspective because I've had this as well. That's me. I'm not saying you did that as well, although I suspect you weren't far off it.
Pure shame and guilt. And funnily enough, like I shouldn't say funnily enough, she reminds me to this day, Charlie, of this conversation.
And do you know what I say to that?
What?
So she should. Keep you on your toes, right? And I'll bet you haven't done it since.
It's funny, we've never had a money problem since. So to that point, like, dude, and even like, it's funny, like making some notes on this podcast episode, like just remembering it, there was like so many things that happened at the time that I was like just suppressed, that talking to her, because she saw it, she like brings up these things around like, do you actually remember that you just would not look at me? And like that you were actually genuinely crying? I'm like, I wasn't fucking crying. And I'm like, oh, no, wait, I fucking was. And she's like, yeah. And I'm like, did you ever feel like you should just leave me? And she's like, no. She's like, I knew you could do the thing. She's like, you just needed the time. Which is like, it was the easiest thing for me to ever say yes to. And I'm like, oh my God.
Can I ask a different question?
Do it.
When you were in this moment, so let's just say, all right, financial hits happened. You've had to front up to Hazel, which I actually think will probably be the hardest part, is fronting up to your partner.
Totally.
Did it confront your belief in yourself and what you were doing at that point? Like, was it after that moment that it's like, maybe I'm not the business owner I thought I was, maybe this thing will never pay off? Like, did it create any doubt for you?
Totally. So it was funny, like, personally, I had these huge doubts whether or not the business was the right business. I had personal doubts in my ability to actually be a business owner, even though previous to that, like, it had been proven that I could run a business. Like I know I could do the thing, but it just filled myself with doubt. I'm like, maybe I just don't know how to create it. Maybe I don't know how to manage money. Maybe I don't know how to work on the right things. Like, it was just every single thing that I had just had pure doubt to it. And funnily enough, I trashed my entire life. Like, I stopped going to the gym, I stopped meditating, I stopped sleeping, I stopped doing all these things. So like everything was just trashed. And so I'm like, well, maybe I just don't have the stamina. I don't have all this stuff. So like literally everything into the life was just like, and you can't do the thing. And that was one of the hardest things for me to get through.
So this is where, again, to what I was referencing earlier, see how the financial thing has actually turned now into a confidence thing?
Yeah.
Like, because we're using money as the grading system in business. So when we take a financial hit, if that's why we're in business or what we're looking at as our scoreboard, when we don't have a win financially, the confidence in ourselves drops, which is where this gets dangerous in my mind. Because if you lose your confidence, right, and suddenly you're not confident in your business, your product, what's the chances of you running a business well at this point?
Hey, fellow business owner, if this topic and value-packed short video has resonated with you at all, and you want to dive deeper into creating wealth inside and outside your business, check out the full episode by clicking the link on your screen or in the description right now.